Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back once again to the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Jackson McCurry. This is a little bonus episode in between our off-season roster deep dive series that's ongoing. And if you haven't listened, please go back into the archive to listen to those last few episodes we've done. Joining me tonight, though, it's not Jack Duffin. It's my usual co-host, Anthony Jokey. Anthony, how's it going, man? It's been a couple weeks.
It has been a couple weeks, and work has been a real royal pain in the you know what. But it's always fun to hop on here, talk some Browns. I'm not sure how much Browns we'll talk today, considering the wide variety of topics we have to discuss. But what an awful sports day yesterday. I mean, the Buckeyes basketball team lost. For me, Cleveland State Vikings lost. The Cavs lost. The Bengals are going to the Super Bowl as well as OBJ. So it was a pretty awful day yesterday. So this podcast might be a little therapeutic after the sports day we had yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. Like, for me, I just treated it like, hey, I don't put the Browns stuff into it. I just wanted to watch good football. And I thought we had two pretty good games. The first game was exciting. Second game was average. It was still good though. As for the podcast, we're not going to talk much Browns because all is really quiet on the Browns front right now. You know, there's no bad news. A couple weeks ago, we had the Malik McDowell stuff, and obviously, that speaks for itself. I don't see him being a Cleveland Brown much longer. We're not going to talk about how Baker left social media with a social media post. That's another topic I really don't want to touch on. But yeah, we'll talk about the games from Sunday, and we'll talk about some other stuff going on around the league for sure.
It's weird that it's quiet. Like, this is like the calm before all hell breaks loose, because it's kind of weird that there hasn't been anything.
Yeah, and I think that could be good. Like you said, it could be before all hell breaks loose. Like, any time now, if the Browns are going to make a move on the quarterback market, it could be any time now. I mean, a year ago, yesterday was when the Matt Stafford for Jared Goff trade happened. So if the Browns are going to try to upgrade from Baker or trade Baker, we might see it any time. And Anthony, when it does, we'll jump on and do an emergency podcast and let the chaos begin.
Maybe we do need something to distract us from the Super Bowl over the next couple of weeks. Like, maybe we need a distraction.
I mean, that would be nice. I'm not, I know that how you feel about it. I know how some other Browns fans feel about it. It's still the Super Bowl. I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to enjoy the game, regardless of who's in it or who's playing on what team and whatever. I mean, the Super Bowl is going to be a good one. It usually is. Like, we haven't seen too many bad Super Bowls. The last one that comes to mind for me is Seattle and Denver, like 10 years ago. And that was a massive blowout. And all the other Super Bowls have been pretty good, pretty exciting. So, and I don't expect this one to be any different.
Well, first off, watch the enjoy it wording. Second, with how great these games have been this postseason, especially the last couple of weeks, I sure hope we're not in for a dud when it comes to the Super Bowl, because the way everything has gone down to the wire in these games, it has been really wonderful theater to watch. I know a couple of the results haven't gone our way, but as fans, but it's just been a tremendous NFL postseason, and hopefully the Super Bowl can follow that and be pretty exciting, even though it's a little bit of a downer.
Yeah, I think, and I said this to a coworker on Monday, that I think this has probably been the best postseason in league history. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure someone could, make a case for another one, but every game except Tampa versus Philly in the wild card round has been exciting. It's been fun to watch from start to finish. Like, this has definitely been the most exciting playoff that I can recall in recent history. Might be an all time.
Pretty much every game the last couple of weeks have been decided by a field goal, except for the Chiefs scoring a touchdown in overtime against the Bills. So that's pretty nuts that these games have been that close. And I guess it kind of shows the parity that the league has, and Granted, the Bengals didn't win like 14, 15 games, but still very competitive. And you can say the same for the Rams too. And they were able to get all the way to the Super Bowl. So, pretty much any team that gets in, has had a chance or, has a good chance. Especially the 49ers making it to the NFC Championship game. I don't know many teams that expected that one. But I think the parity across the NFL is something that the league is very excited about.
Yeah, without question, because I seen it today. Cincinnati was 125-1 in the preseason to get to the Super Bowl, and that's no one expected that. The turnaround that organization has had in 2 seasons, to where the 2019 season they won 2 games and obviously earned the right to have the number 1 pick to draft Joe Burrow, and just to see the turnaround that they've had so quickly. And especially for Burrow coming off the ACL injury last year, to see his rise and to see that team's rise as a whole has been incredible to watch. It does hurt because a lot of us thought that it would be the Browns making that ascension in 2021. Unfortunately, it didn't happen due to a lot of different things. But yeah, just seeing them and seeing the Rams, who they've gone all in the last couple years on moves, the Jalen Ramsey trade, the Matt Stafford trade, obviously, being able to acquire guys like Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr., putting this team together with a mix of superstars as well as homegrown talent, which I seen a stat today that the Rams have the 6th most homegrown talent in the league. To see the moves that they have made over the last couple years finally pay off. Well, obviously it's their 2nd Super Bowl appearance in 4 years, but like you said about the parity, I think as long as you get to the tournament, essentially, and this is a saying I've heard a lot, as long as you get to the tournament, whatever happens after that happens. I don't think anybody thought it was going to be Bengals Rams when the playoffs started, but here we are. These are the last 2 teams remaining, and they obviously earned the right to get to the Super Bowl, and in 13 days we'll get to see who takes home the Lombardi Trophy.
Yes, it's much different than like baseball and basketball, right? You tend to see in those series where you play 5-7 games that the better teams, the teams that have the better rosters tend to win. Especially in basketball, it's so top heavy. But when you have a sport and it has a single game elimination tournament, and you see it in NCAA basketball every year, a lot of crazy things happen. And in the NFL, any given Sunday, which is a tremendous movie. I need to go back and watch that. It's been a while, but really, any given Sunday, anybody can win. So it's just it's fun to watch, and I know we're everyone's obviously going to watch the Super Bowl, so it's going to be an interesting game a couple weeks from now.
So going back to, we'll start with the AFC Championship, Anthony. Kansas City got out to a huge lead. It was 21-3 about midway through the 2nd quarter, and everybody thought Kansas City was gonna, boat race them. It was gonna be a blowout. They were going to another Super Bowl. But this Cincinnati team, if you leave the door just a little bit cracked open, then we've seen this. We've seen it the first time Kansas City and Cincinnati played. Cincinnati finds a way to come back, and they fight and they fight. They scored late in that 2nd quarter to make it 21-10, and then in the 3rd quarter, they score 11 points, pull it within 3, and then it was just like something happened to Patrick Mahomes in that 2nd half. He went 8 for 18. He just seemed like a completely different quarterback, and the Bengals defense made their adjustments and started hitting him, started being more aggressive. And Cincinnati, it's like I said, their ascension in the last couple years. They revamped the defense this past offseason, and also added Jamar Chase. But this team, if you give them the slightest inch of hope, they're going to take it and run with it, and that's what they've done all postseason and pretty much for the most of the regular season.
Yeah, and then the regular season game, I think Cincinnati trailed by 14 like 3 different times before winning that game pretty handedly. And yesterday, Obviously scoring 11 points in about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Holding the Chiefs to 3 points in the second half, which was the game tying field goal to send it to overtime. Picking Mahomes off twice. What an incredible play by Hill there. On that screenplay to pick that off. I don't know what happened to Mahomes. Like, he was very rattled. You kind of saw the same thing in the Super Bowl last year against Tampa Bay. I know he can't do it all on his own, but they were moving the ball so freely and easily in the first half, and everything just really tightened up in the second half. I don't know, the pressure got to him or what, but it was weird to see him perform like that in the second half, and then throwing that interception in overtime. So it's a very interesting thing, but it's a testament to the Bengals and what they're able to do, and their quarterback, their leader, Joe Burrow. They're seems like they've never been out of a game this year while he's playing, and it's just been tremendous to watch a guy in his second year who many thought coming back from that ACL injury there would be a lot of issues. They didn't particularly address the offensive line a lot, but it's kind of held together. I know he got sacked 9 times in their one playoff win. So what they've been able to do and battle through a lot of things, and they kind of been fighting against being that underdog. Like, they don't think they're that, but they're certainly something. And I'm very surprised that they won that game yesterday. They beat the Chiefs to clinch the AFC North in the regular season, and then they beat the Chiefs in the postseason to go to the Super Bowl. So those are pretty two signature wins in the young career of Joe Burrow, and I'm sure obviously you have one 13 days from now potentially, but there's going to be a lot more of those opportunities, I think, for him coming up.
Yeah, I mean, seeing how much punishment he's taken, I think he got sacked over 50 times in the regular season. It was 9 times against Tennessee, but the fact that it doesn't faze him, like, he was able to shake off those 9 sacks against the Titans and still make all the throws. He was so pinpoint with his accuracy. And then yesterday, I mean, he got out of some near sacks. I know the one, Chris Jones nearly got him twice, and he was able to scramble out of it and get a first down. Like, that kid's got so much, they always talk about the intangibles, the it factor. Joe Burrow has that it factor. Like, nothing phases him. I mean, it's amazing to watch him, all the way back at Ohio State. They always talked about him, but he was behind Dwayne Haskins. So he transfers to LSU. The 1 year he's there, wins the Heisman, leads the Tigers to a national championship. Then he becomes the number 1 pick. And just to see what he's done for that team in 2 years already, it's phenomenal. As much as I hate it because it's on the Bengals, seeing the kid from Ohio doing what he's doing, like, you can't help but be proud of him, where he came from in Athens, which isn't the greatest part of Ohio, but to see his rise as a quarterback. And like you said, even if he doesn't win this Super Bowl, like, the talent that he has, the talent that Bengals have put around him, and I think will continue to put around him, this won't be his lone Super Bowl. I mean, barring a career-ending injury, there's a lot of talent in the AFC, but Burrow is showing that he's got the tools, the traits, the characteristics to be a franchise quarterback. And, the Bengals got lucky to be in the position to get him. And, you hope that they continue, for his sake, that they continue to put talent around him to show that he could be, the next great franchise quarterback. And, unfortunately, it'd be for the Bengals, but if he can take them to a couple Super Bowls and win one, I mean, he'll cement his legend in Cincinnati forever.
Yeah, he's kind of like the opposite of, like, Trubisky, right? The Ohio kid who was supposed to go save a franchise. It just has worked out really well so far in Cincinnati. And you're right, they need to. I'm sure they'll slowly address the old line still. You get better at that. He has a tremendous receiving core on that team, a good running back. The defense, there's a few players they have to re-sign this offseason. But, there's certainly a lot of talent on the Bengals. And, how about, Zach Taylor going from being on the hot seat last year to going to the Super Bowl in the next year? A lot has to be said from what they did from last year to this year. The growth that this whole team has, and not only does Burrow deserve a lot of credit, but I think a lot of that should go to Zach Taylor as well.
Yeah, I mean, the week of, I think it was the first Browns-Bengals matchup when we had Ace Boogie from AFC North talk on. We talked about Zach Taylor, and I asked him, "Do you think he's the right coach?" And he said he was. I think Mike Brown has a tendency to be very patient. He doesn't like firing coaches. He definitely was on the hot seat going into this year, and Zach Taylor's proved a lot of people wrong. And it's so ironic, Anthony, because he was a understudy of Sean McVay, and now the teacher's going against, or the student's going up against the teacher in the Super Bowl, and this coming up. And it's crazy because I don't think anybody saw Zach Taylor as that. Everybody saw Matt LaFleur in Green Bay as that, but now we're seeing, hey, it's like Zach Taylor's probably in line for a significant contract extension when a lot of people thought he could be fired after this year. So, like you said, as much credit goes to Joe Burrow, credit should go to Zach Taylor, because he's been able to not only help develop Burrow, but deal with all the array of talent on that offensive side, whether it's Joe Mixon, whether it's Jamar Chase or T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd, or even CJ Uzma, who had a nasty looking knee injury, and he's probably going to be out for the Super Bowl. But dealing with all those offensive weapons and being able to share the wealth amongst that offensive side, I mean, kudos goes to Zach Taylor for sure.
Yeah, how about the student goes against the teacher, except the student is older than the teacher? Zach Taylor.
Funny how that works.
Taylor is 38 and McVay is 36. Just turned 36. So it's pretty incredible. These young coaches in the NFL. It's this is where the Bengals thought they would be. For a long time under Marvin Lewis, and having Andy Dalton, and these last few years have been rough for them, but they've certainly turned it around, and obviously able to make the Super Bowl. But on the other side, the Rams, this is their second Super Bowl in the last 4 years under Sean McVay. They lost to the Patriots in a very low-scoring affair a few years ago.
Oh, that was another boring Super Bowl that I forgot about.
Yeah. We were talking off air about boring Super Bowls. But yeah, I'm sure he's happy to get back to the Super Bowl. And how about the move they made this year to go get Stafford and traded Jared Goff? It was a pretty incredible move as the Rams and everybody there have gone all in with the amount of draft picks that they spent, money in free agency. You mentioned all the homegrown talent that they have, that they've resigned. It's a pretty incredible team that they have over there under Sean McVay and their leadership. And, it's pretty incredible that a guy so young is able to command that entire locker room and that entire team. And, he's maybe one of the next great coaches. And, I'm sure Washington football team is kicking themselves for not hiring either one of these guys as their head coach. But, they had both of them in the organization at the same time. It's just a pretty incredible thing of what Sean McVay has been able to do and what he's able to do for that offense. He has a tremendous defense too, which can't be understated. When you have the likes of Aaron Donald and Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, the defense is no joke either. So It's certainly going to be a tough test for the Bengals, and I'm sure, we'll get back next week and really break down the Super Bowl. But um, it's, I think, going to be a very exciting game, and it's. I don't know who wins at this point. I tend to favor Los Angeles, but uh, and specifically the Rams, since there's two teams there. But it's going to be a close one. You can't count Joe Burrow out, I think, in anything.
No, and we'll definitely break it down more next week when we preview the game. But you talked about Sean McVay. I mean, he's only 36 years old, Anthony. He's already in his second Super Bowl. What he's done for the Rams in 5 years, going 61-29, and this includes regular season and postseason. Not only that, but you look at his coaching tree already. 4 of his assistants are either an NFL coach or a college coach. Matt LaFleur, obviously, with the Packers, Taylor with the Bengals, Brandon Staley with the Chargers, and then Jed Fish is the head coach of the Arizona Wildcats. So the Sean McVay tree is only just starting to grow. And you mentioned the Washington football team. They had Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, and Sean McVay in their offensive coaching staff. Neither one of them is still with the Washington football team. So I don't know if that's credit to the coaching staff that was there, Mike Shanahan, or the fact that the incompetence of the Washington football team. Now they have Ron Rivera, he's a phenomenal NFL coach, but the fact that you had 3 young offensive minds in that room who are now all having success elsewhere, just goes to show you what the Washington football team has been.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll be, looking for a quarterback this offseason, and it's just incredible what McVay has done in such a young career, and he still has 30 years ahead of him probably coaching in the NFL if he wants.
You would think,
as long as he has continued success and wants to do it. So he's going to be around a very, very long time.
Yeah, without question. The sky's the limit for him as an NFL coach. And, like I said, 36 years old, he's got a long, successful career ahead of him. We'll talk more about the Super Bowl next week. Let's get to other NFL news. And this is really the only Browns related story of the last, week that has to do with actual football, not, nonsense on social media. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who was the vice president of football operations. We knew he was going to get interviewed for general manager jobs around the league, and he did. And the Minnesota Vikings decided to hire him as their next general manager after they cleaned house, firing both Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer earlier this month. Adofo-Mensah is 40 years old. Really, Anthony, he's only been in football a decade. Started with the 49ers back in 2013 after he was working on Wall Street. Worked his way up through that organization, and then Andrew Berry brought him over 2 years ago as a vice president of football operations, and he's been on a meteoric rise, and now he gets to run an NFL franchise. They're still in the middle of a coaching search, which could be interesting because he could be bringing back a former familiar face from the 49ers in Jim Harbaugh, but Kwesi is somebody that a lot of teams had their eyes on. The Browns probably didn't want to lose him, but at the same time, much like coaches, let assistants go. Andrew Berry had to let one of his assistants go. But it also benefits the Browns, Anthony, because the Browns did receive 2 compensatory third-round picks for Minnesota hiring Kwesi.
Yeah, and it just goes to show how much respect I think is the Browns front office has right now. Now, granted, there's some work they have to do still, but there's a lot of people in that organization that are catching the eyes of others, and that just goes to show what the league thinks of Andrew Berry and what he's done with his roster. So I tend to think that there's going to be down the road, as long as it works here, right? As long as it works here and as long as it works in Minnesota, I think there's going to be more, front office members that are going to be poached from the Browns down the road because, when things are working, when people are highly sought after, you know, there's certainly that opportunity there. I lost my thought. But yeah, I mean, to have this front office, I would wonder if they're going to like continue to promote from the inside up into these new positions to kind of fill the loss that they suffered in the front office there. But on Minnesota's side, they have a lot of work to do. They have to figure out what they're going to do with their quarterback. Obviously finding a head coach, and with it potentially being somebody from that team up north. That's certainly an interesting aspect to watch in this. But obviously they have a lot of work to do, and we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, as far as the Browns front office, Glenn Cook, who also interviewed for GM openings, I think he's still a year away from reports. I would imagine he'll probably be elevated into what Kwesi's role was, being essentially Andrew Berry's right-hand man, and then perhaps in a year Glenn Cook goes and gets a general manager gig somewhere, and then the Browns get 2 third-round picks again. I think Andrew Berry doesn't, he's a collaborator. He lets guys, get their hands on everything, much like he had to do when he was with the Colts, when he was with the Eagles, his first go around with the Browns working under Sashi. I don't think Barry has a problem, A, finding guys to work with him, and then B, letting them go and getting jobs elsewhere. I think I compare it, and hopefully it works out this way as it did, the Cleveland Guardians. You think about all the general managers that they've had work underneath Mark Shapiro and Chris Antonetti, and then they've gone elsewhere. I think the Guardians lost a couple guys this year that went to the Nationals, went to the Cubs to become general managers, or certain roles in the front office. So if the Browns can end up being like the Guardians and having a front office tree the way the Guardians have, I mean, that just shows you how successful the front office is working, and hopefully Andrew Berry gets to be around as long as Mark Shapiro and Chris Antonetti have been in Cleveland. Well, were in Cleveland in Shapiro's case.
Even to the Cavs to some extent, right? Because they've continued to hire from within, and it seems like they've finally gotten the right guy, Colby Altman. So, when you're able to continue to promote from within, and it's like we've talked about with the Steelers for so many years, right? How many times have they lost somebody and they just plug the next guy up right in there? The Patriots have done the same thing. When you have good organizations and you have a good front office with good leadership, obviously starting at the top with ownership, these things can last a long time. And I know the Dolans don't get all the credit in the world, but the one thing that they've done really well, and you'll have to tell Alex that I'm actually like talking good about them for once. But the one thing that they have done really well is their front office. And I know at times they could be hamstrung in what they're able to do, but just the way that they've been able to promote everybody from within for so many years, ever since that was John Hart left and Shapiro came in. That was who came in after that, right? So, for the last 20 plus years, they've been able to have a continuous thing going in that front office over there on Carnegie and Ontario. And, with the Cavs, they've kind of done the same thing over the last, 10, 12 years. So, it certainly takes a lot of patience from ownership. And I think that when, Haslam and whatnot, we're looking around, seeing how, they tried some stuff that didn't work. When they really looked at it, I think they kind of get the idea now that, we have to keep this together for a while. And with the guys that they have in the front office and on the coaching staff, if they keep it together for a while, I think they're only going to benefit down the road. I know they like immediate results, and you want to see that improvement. And granted, over the last few seasons, there have been improvement from the disastrous franchise that it was. It's kind of night and day. I know, like we mentioned, there's still things they have to figure out, but there's certainly some good aspects to what they've done. If they can continue to let Andrew Berry and Stefanski and everybody else in that front office do what they do over, the next 5, 7, 10 years, and maybe even beyond, you're only going to see the benefits of that.
Yeah, you just hope that the Haslam stick with this because, regardless of how, certain positions on the team haven't gone the way people have planned, it seems like they're building something with Paul DePodesta, with Andrew Berry, the front office staff, and with Kevin Stefanski as the head coach. It just seems like you got to give it time. There's going to be bumps in the road, but it just seems like things are a lot smoother, that things are more aligned, and things are more working properly than what was the last couple regimes with Hugh and Sashi or with Dorsey and Freddie. Like, it just seems like everybody's on the same page, and you got to give them the time and the resources. I think this Browns thing can turn it around. Obviously, you look around the league, you got to get the quarterback position right. We don't know how they feel about Baker. We tend to think we know how they feel just because he doesn't have a new contract. And, kudos to them for not doing it when everybody thought they were going to do it. But they get the quarterback right. I think we have the head coach. I think we have the front office. Everything else will fall into place, and the Browns will be a successful organization. You just got to hope that the Haslam stay patient with that plan in that process.
I do have a front office question for you, and yes. I don't want to talk too much Browns because there's still plenty to talk about. But
right,
at what point do you think the Browns don't want to lose some of these talented individuals in this front office to the point where maybe, all right, let's put Andrew Berry as president of football ops. Let's promote this next guy to general manager to not lose all these different individuals they have in the front office.
We talked about this in the past with Dorsey and stuff. I think as long as DePodesta and Berry are here, they're gonna have guys ready to go. That they're gonna be fine with the Kwesi Adofo-Mensahs and the Glenn Cooks of the world go take GM jobs. I feel like they have guys at the ready. Guys, you think back, Anthony, to Belichick. They had guys like Eric Mangini, Mike Tannenbaum, Ozzie Newsome, these guys that were underneath Belichick and Mike Lombardi at the time. Look at all these guys that went out and had success elsewhere. I think that's what good organizations do. Like you said, they elevate people from within, the Steelers, the Patriots of the world. I think the Rams did it as well because they've let guys go and become GMs. I don't think the Browns will have an issue with that. I think as long as DePodesta and Berry are at the helm of the front office, I don't think we'll ever have to worry about who else is underneath them because I feel like they're going to go and find new guys that'll have the same vision and same plan that they do, and they'll follow suit and work together as a team like they have been.
Yeah, I guess as long as they can stay true to all their processes and all that stuff that they've put in place, I guess that you could continue to bump these guys up into the roles that have been left.
Yep, because I'm looking at their front office group right now. Chris Cooper's been their cap guy for the last few years. He's now the vice president of football administration. They have a vice president of research and strategy, a vice president of player personnel, Ken Kovac, who's been here since Sashi started 5 years ago now, 5-6 years ago now. So they got guys in that front office, and it's a lengthy list of people in this front office. So, like I said, I don't think DePodesta and Berry will have any problem finding guys that want to, learn underneath them, work together with them, and eventually have the goal in mind to become a general manager in the NFL one day. So we're going to move forward with the head coaching carousel that's been ongoing. There was 9 jobs coming in when this all started. There was 8 And then, Anthony, we got thrown a curveball last week and we'll actually start with this. Sean Payton, the now former head coach of the New Orleans Saints, I wouldn't call it retired. He decided to step away from football. What a successful run he had in New Orleans, first of all, 15 years, many playoff appearances, obviously winning the Super Bowl back in, I think it was 2009, 2010. Obviously, you know, the stain of Bountygate will linger with him for the rest of his coaching career, but you can't deny the run that Sean Payton and really with Drew Brees as his quarterback for 14 of those 15 years, one of the better head coaching quarterback duos in league history. Was a surprise, but it's going to be interesting to see what Sean Payton's future holds.
Yeah, you know, somebody who came in there, you know, and
right after Katrina.
Right after Katrina, was able to win the Super Bowl with Drew Brees and everything, and you know, I know they love him down there, and I'm sure they're all bummed that, you know, he decided to step away. You know, there's multiple rumors out there what he might do next. Maybe broadcast TV. You know, there's with Amazon trying to get their, you know, Thursday Night Football out there. He could replace one of the other network guys who Amazon is targeting for that. So, he's just a really good head coach. You know, obviously, like you mentioned, the Bountygate stuff will linger for a long time, but he's just been a very good one down there. You mentioned the duos. I mean, between like, you know, him and Breeze and Belichick and Brady. I guess you could even say like Tomlin and Roethlisberger for a long time. you know, they were together for a long time, so. You know, that was quite the duo down there. And, you know, it's certainly a bummer that he'll no longer be on the sidelines for the Saints.
Yeah, I think he's going to take a year away. I think he's going to pull the Urban Meyer. He's going to take a year off. And then it will not shock me if he's the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
Hopefully that's the only thing he does like Urban Meyer.
Yeah, for sure. But do you agree with me that you think Dallas might be in his future if he comes back?
I guess
the rumors are out there.
I can see that. You know, you have to obviously see what other coaching spots are open in a year from now. You know, maybe Seattle. You know.
Yeah, that's another possibility.
Certainly, it could be a possibility. Arizona, if things collapse again, maybe. You know, those are really the only couple that come to my mind at the moment. So, you know, with the teams hiring 9 head coaches or having to hire 9 head coaches this offseason, I can't imagine many of them will be one and done. You know, Houston's just like a different thing. We won't discuss that. But, you know, there certainly will be opportunity if he wants to come back to coaching a year from now or even 2 years from now. How old is he?
Oh,
he's in his mid-60s, 60,
somewhere in there. Yeah, I would think he's somewhere around that range.
You know, I'm not sure exactly
58.
58. Yeah, he probably still has, if he takes a couple years off, another 7 to 10 years coaching.
Yeah.
So it all depends on what he wants to do, and if he finds a spot for him and his family, that would be a good place for him to be. So it just depends on whatever's open a year from now.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Dallas rumor has always been out there, so it's going to be interesting to see how Mike McCarthy responds to it after the poor finish to this season for Dallas. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But Anthony, go ahead.
I'm surprised McCarthy didn't get canned. I thought he was going to.
I think he would have had Payton not wanted to take a year off. I think they would have pulled a trade off to get him in Dallas. But I feel like Payton probably told Jerry, like, let me take a year off. I think his health's kind of bad. I think he needs a year to get back into to get in good health, probably do the TV gig, and then make the trade with New
So
Orleans to get Payton back in the Cowboys.
how long is he? How long is he under contract for? Would they have to trade for him in a year from now?
I think they said through 2024, so he would have a couple years. So yeah, they would have to make a trade because I don't see, unless New Orleans just lets him go, because obviously they're looking for a new head coach. But I feel like there's going to be some kind of compensation exchange.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being crazy, but I guess there could be something.
Well, I mean, Gruden went for a first-round pick. Belichick went for 2 first-round picks back in the day. Sean Payton's one of the greatest coaches of all time. I would think it would, and I don't think Jerry would have a problem, depending on where they're at in the draft order in a year from now. But a first-round pick wouldn't be bad for Sean Payton.
And let's be honest, the Saints have a need for draft picks currently. Because
they have a need for a lot of they have a need for a lot of things.
That quarterback situation is not a pleasant one.
No, not at all. They're going to be an interesting team to watch this offseason. But right now, Anthony, there's only 4 of the 9 head coaching vacancies have been filled. I think the biggest surprise was the most recent one. Josh McDaniels has finally decided to leave New England again and take a head coaching gig. We had the Colts fiasco a couple years ago. He nearly became the head coach of the Browns 2 years ago, but now Josh McDaniels is going to Vegas. He's the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. This is an interesting move for him because right now the AFC West is already stacked with the Chiefs and the Chargers with their quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, but which we'll get to. Obviously, probably the next hire we'll talk about Denver, but in their quarterback situation could be getting an upgrade. Interesting move for McDaniels to take this one. I mean, the Raiders are no slouch. They obviously were in the playoffs, have Derek Carr at quarterback. But I'm very fascinated with McDaniels finally deciding to leave the Belichick nest again and take another head coaching gig. Just didn't expect it to be the Raiders.
Yeah, I think, him taking this tells me that, he's just waiting for the right opportunity. There's obviously an established quarterback there, and this pretty much puts any rumors to bed, I think, of Derek Carr going anywhere this offseason. I could even see some kind of extension maybe for Carr, who has, a year remaining on his deal. So I could see that. I guess he just felt it was the right time. I would assume this means maybe Belichick's going to be around another 5 or 6 years. You never know. I still see like McDaniels maybe being the apparent to Belichick and somewhere down the road in New England. But I'm surprised that he decided to finally go after all this time being back in New England after being in Denver and that ending rather unpleasantly, I think, for everybody involved. So it'll be very interesting to see in Vegas to see what he's able to do. And you're right, that division is no joke, and especially if Rodgers decides he wants to go to Denver. I don't know who's going to come out of that division. I do know that those teams are going to beat up against each other, and it's they could take each other out of the playoffs. Besides the division winner, if they beat each other up quite a bit. So it's certainly going to be fascinating to see what he's able to do out there in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned Rodgers going to Denver. The dots seem to keep connecting, especially with their head coaching hire. Denver hired offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. And, a lot of people are going to say, well, of course he was a great offensive coordinator in Green Bay when you have one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in Aaron Rodgers. But Hackett, before he was the OC in Green Bay, he was the OC in Jacksonville, Anthony. And they, you remember their magical year, I think it was 2016, 2017, where they were 5 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl before, Brady and the Patriots come back. That year, that offense ranked in the top, I think it was like 5th or 6th in the NFL, and Blake Bortles was the quarterback. And you just remember that team was so good. It's so fun to watch with their defense. And they had Leonard Fournette, who was a rookie. And they had, I think they had Allen Robinson there. They had a couple other weapons, but Blake Bortles was the quarterback, and Nathaniel Hackett coached him into a top 10 NFL scoring offense. So I actually like this hire. The Broncos have good pieces. The quarterback decision is looming. Is Aaron Rodgers going to want to leave Green Bay? Is he going to want to go to Denver? That's going to be fun to watch. But I think this Nathaniel Hackett was a solid hire for the Broncos, obviously moving on from Vic Fangio and Pat Shurmur as the offensive coordinator. I think this is actually a good move by Denver.
Yeah, I'm just kind of glad that if Rodgers does decide to go to Denver, that we don't have to play them. Thankfully, because we beat Baltimore last game, we will not play Denver. We had certainly had an opportunity to. Obviously, instead we get stuck with the Chargers again. Yeah, we get the Chargers again. So I think it's a home game too. So, yeah, those dots are certainly starting to be connected out there in Denver. They have a good roster. I could imagine Aaron Rodgers would probably lure a few free agents out that way. I'm not sure what their cap situation is, but they've been looking for a quarterback ever since Peyton Manning left, and it'd be kind of interesting to see that if Rodgers is going to be that guy. That's going to be, I guess, the big domino to fall this offseason with this quarterback carousel is going to be Aaron Rodgers first, and then everybody else. I guess if Brady officially retires or not, I guess that could be the first thing. We all think he's going to, based on the reports, and even though there was that backlash this weekend against it. But the quarterback carousel is going to determine a lot of things. Like I mentioned, I think that with McDaniels going to Vegas, cars are going to stay. So if Rodgers does go to Denver, it'll be interesting to see what that carousel looks like after that.
Yeah, definitely. I think, obviously, and as of Monday night, Tom Brady hasn't officially retired. He even said on his podcast that he's still taking it day by day. Kind of took a shot at Schefter and Darlington for, jumping the gun too, but he said that he hasn't made a decision yet. I tend to think he's going to retire because Schefter and those guys are sticking to the reporting. But yeah, once that domino falls, I would imagine the Aaron Rodgers one is next. Feel like Kirk Cousins might have something to say about it, depending on Minnesota and their head coaching decision. But yeah, Denver is going to be fascinating to watch because they could get Aaron Rodgers. They could be in the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. Russell Wilson's still hanging out there. I think those are really the only big ones that Denver wants to do, because I feel like they're going to go and try to make a significant upgrade. They've had Teddy Bridgewater. They've had Drew Lock the last couple of years. They got a great defense. They got some offensive weapons. They're just a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. But I'm pretty confident that whoever they get, Nathaniel Hackett's going to elevate their play based on his track record with Jacksonville. And obviously his run in Green Bay was pretty successful as well, thanks to Aaron Rodgers. You got something to add?
No.
Oh, okay. So the New York Giants hired a new head coach as well. It's a familiar face to the Cleveland Browns because he was their offensive coordinator back in the day, back in 2009 and 2010 seasons. He wasn't a very good offensive coordinator there, but he fixed his play calling. Obviously, was offensive coordinator again in Kansas City. Worked under Belichick for a couple years in McDaniels, and then goes to Buffalo back in 2018, becomes the offensive coordinator, revitalized his coaching stock. Brian Daboll, the new head coach of the New York Giants, had a successful 4-year run with the Bills, developing Josh Allen. And now he goes to New York, where could potentially try to salvage Daniel Jones's career. Daniel Jones is entering year 4, I believe, coming up. But Daboll's in for a tough task. He's got to deal with that New York City media. Obviously, the Giants are one of the iconic franchises and have been pretty much stuck in a rut since Eli Manning's retirement, since OBJ departed there a few years back. Daboll's got a lot to work with, obviously with Saquon Barkley, Kenny Galladay. Like, there's some weapons there on the offensive side of the ball, but trying to get the Giants back into relevancy. all while trying to also salvage Daniel Jones. Dable's in for a tough task, but he has a reputation of being a strong leader, and I think that's something the New York Giants has desperately needed since Tom Coughlin left.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for the Giants is Gettleman is no longer there as well. So obviously, changing up general managers is a big thing for them. It'll be curious to see what does happen with Daniel Jones, since Jones was not Dable's or the new general manager's guy. But he's going into his fourth year, and he's gotten better completion percentage wise, but there's certainly some things that need to be fixed. And it was a long, patient process with Josh Allen, and it might be the same thing with Daniel Jones. He will have 2 years, this year, next year to prove something probably. If Dable's is able to get the patience out of everybody. I know in New York that's not an easy thing to do, but he has some time, I think, to prove that he could be the guy there. He certainly has a lot of work to do. Granted, he does need some help and more talent around him as well. So, it's a very interesting hire that the Giants made, but I think Dable has done a good job. His play calling is still getting questionable at times. I'm sure our good friend Kevin Masari could attest to that. But being a Bills fan, but I think he'll do okay in New York as long as he can handle the pressure of being there and handle the media, which is never an easy task. Some people can, some people can't. So it'll be very interesting to see what the future of the Giants is going to be like in a couple years.
As long as he doesn't go on a 13-minute rant without stop talking like Joe Judge did towards the end of the season, I think Dable will be okay.
Or having some like weird blinking thing like Adam Gase for the
right.
Jets.
But honestly, like looking at Dable, he can't be much worse than Ben McAdoo and Pat Shurmur. Like I feel like he's definitely a significant upgrade over those two.
That's a really low bar you're setting there.
Well, I mean, that's what the Giants have been hiring over the last couple of years.
That's a really low bar, but yeah, if he's just average, that would certainly be a lot better than what they've had.
Without question. The last head coaching hire so far. Don't know much about this guy, but Matt Eberflus, who I believe the Browns interviewed a couple years ago before they hired Freddie. Is either before they hired Freddie or before they hired Stefanski. I can't remember which coaching search.
I do remember him interviewing. Yeah. And I'm sure we talked about him, but Lord help me, I don't remember.
Yeah. He does have another connection to the Browns. He was the linebacker coach back in 2009 and 2010 under Mangini, same staff that Brian Dable was on. Then he went to the Cowboys where he was a linebacker coach for 7 seasons. Then the last 4, he was the defensive coordinator for the Colts. Obviously a guy that NFL teams have kept his eye on because he has interviewed multiple times over the years. He did interview for the Browns. I just forget which coaching cycle it was. But obviously the Bears saw something in him. They passed on Dan Quinn, who's the Cowboys defensive coordinator. They also passed on Jim Caldwell, who I had the feeling that they were going to hire him and, get him to, develop Justin Fields. But they decided to go with Matt Eberflus. They did pluck Luke Getsy, former Akron Zips quarterback and Green Bay Packers head coach, to become the Bears offensive coordinator. So that's actually a pretty good get for Eberflus to get him as an offensive play caller. Hopefully whatever magic Rodgers had on that QB room, Getsy bottled it up and brought it down to Chicago, because Fields had a tough rookie year. Obviously Matt Nagy did him no favors with that offense. So it's going to be interesting to see what Eberflus and Getsy do with Justin Fields, who had a tough rookie year, but the potential is still there for Fields to become a franchise quarterback.
All right. It looks like it was the Freddie year where they hired Freddie, because it says it's a 6 candidate to interview. Greg Williams was part of it. Jim Caldwell, Stefanski the first time, Dan Campbell, Brian Flores. So there's some interesting names on that list when you take a look back at it, and they decided to go with Freddie. But that's for a different day.
Thanks, Dorsey.
I know, right? And we'll talk about Flores next, I think, because I think that's important. But yeah, he's certainly a guy who's highly regarded at defense over there in Indy. Has been really strong the last few years. I know Indy had that collapse towards the end of the season. I guess the last week, really. I really can't blame him for that one, but they have a lot of talent on Indy. He certainly is going to have his work cut out in Chicago, also with the new general manager there as well. So having a nice young quarterback will help. Hopefully, Justin Fields wasn't ruined too much by Matt Nagy. So it will be. I've always had like a soft spot for the Bears for some reason, so I kind of hope it works out. But they just had their work cut out for them. They need a lot of talent on that football team. I'll be curious to see what he's able to do with Khalil Mack. Being a defensive guy, so I would imagine he should have some success there. And I think strong defensive teams suit that city well. Based on their history. So hopefully he can find the right offensive coordinator and be able to do well with Justin Fields, and they'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm anxious to see how that all works out for Chicago. Kind of a curveball coaching hire, I would say. But like I said, Eberflus has been connected to many coaching spots and has been a name the last couple cycles for potential head coach. So good luck to him in Chicago. You did mention Brian Flores. I think everybody was shocked on Black Monday that he got fired by Miami. I think also a lot of us are shocked, Anthony, that nearly a month since he got fired that he hasn't been hired yet. He did interview with the Texans, I think, on Monday, or he's going to be interviewing. The Texans search has been so wild. They've interviewed Hines Ward. Josh McCown is supposedly a legit candidate for this job.
It makes the most twice.
Yeah, he interviewed twice, but it makes sense. Like, Flores hasn't been hired yet. There's still 5 openings. I would get the sense he's going to be hired by one of these teams because he's a damn good coach, and he helped turn around the Dolphins to get to the point where they were at. Houston makes the most sense, but what's your thoughts on Flores and his, chances of being a head coach again?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand Miami letting him go at all. I would think they only do that if they had something lined up. I guess where Harbaugh ends up potentially could play into this. I wonder if Minnesota could be an option if they don't get him. Harbaugh, I mean. But I'm really shocked that Flores has gone this long without getting picked up by somebody else after who put it an incredible turnaround they had down there in Miami. So I don't understand it. But if he doesn't get hired as a head coach, somebody I would imagine is going to get a very good defensive coordinator somewhere. And I don't know which team that would be, but maybe New York with Dable.
They're keeping. I think they're keeping Patrick Graham.
Are they? Well, he's gotten some interviews too, if I remember right.
True. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, the plan is that he's coming back as defensive coordinator.
So maybe Vegas.
I seen Wink Martindale connected to that job. So yeah, I think he could be a defensive coordinator somewhere. With 5 vacancies left,
he's got to get one.
He's got to get one.
He has to.
Yeah, like they've all said, he'll be the hottest candidate out there. Now, unless there's something behind the scenes that happened in Miami that's hurting his stock, I don't see how he's not a head coach again next season in the league.
You know what place would be perfect for him? New Orleans. I feel like that would be the perfect spot for him.
It would be. I think so. They got a good defense. Like, obviously, if he can get an offensive coordinator to come down there and help him with the offense, it makes the most sense. But Houston makes sense, too, because his connection with New England. Casario's the GM. Seems like they could coexist, but it also seems like the Texans want somebody they can control, which is unfortunate for David Culley that, he got put in that situation. It reminded me of Chudzinski here in Cleveland.
The Texans are the new Browns, and that's not a good thing.
No, it is not. No, it is not. Anthony, as we wrap up, because, our first podcast in nearly a month together and we've gone an hour, do you have anything else you want to chime in on?
Well, let me say this. I'm taking a Twitter break because I cannot handle just the back and forth that's going to be going on over the next few weeks. So you guys can follow my account and Anthony Jockey, but there won't be any tweets from it for a little bit. Look, I'm tired, Jack, of the pessimism and the woe is me thing and yada, yada, yada. I can't handle it. I'm tapping out for now. And, if you guys want to run yourselves into the ground over the next few weeks, talking about Joe Burrow, talking about OBJ, have at it. Good on you. I'm not going on Twitter. I'm not listening to talk radio. I'm just taking a break. And the fact that I'm going to miss all this over the next few weeks is probably the best thing in the world right now.
Don't worry. I'll keep you informed about what's going on.
That's okay. I'm good.
My God. I feel it. Like, there's days I get on Twitter and I immediately get a headache. Like, it's been nonstop. Like, and kudos, the spaces sometimes can be entertaining, but it just seems to be the same canter back and forth. Like, we're against Baker. If you come in and say you're with Baker, they jump all over you. Like, guys, I hate to break it to you, but the way things stand right now, Baker Mayfield's going to be the starting quarterback next year. But yeah, Twitter is such a what? Go ahead.
How many times can we have the same argument every single day? Like, don't you get tired of it? Like, everybody, Baker's got to be the guy. Baker's not the guy. Don't you get tired? Like, come on.
I know I'm getting tired of it.
Find something else to do. Find something else to improve your time.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I don't blame you for taking a break.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that there. With Baker, I'll say this: there's a point where, yes, you can look at all the bad and see and think you want to improve, but you can also look at, well, he had a significant injury and maybe he deserves another chance. You could be in the middle. You don't have to pick a side, and it's just. Same thing with the OBJ thing. It didn't work here. It's a lot of people's fault. It's not the Browns' fault. It's not OBJ's fault. It's not Kevin Stefanski's fault. It's not Baker Mayfield's fault. It's everybody's fault. It didn't work. And it's unfortunate that it didn't work. So y'all need to calm down and just take a breath and relax. And you'll feel better tomorrow if you do.
Go watch the Cavs if you don't want to be miserable. I can't believe I'm saying that because 6 months ago I wouldn't have said that.
That is not a phrase I thought I would ever hear, outside of a LeBron team,
No kidding. I mean, kudos to the Cavs have given us something happy to enjoy.
It's been a very nice distraction from all this nonsense. So
it very much has been. So as we wrap things up, you guys can follow me on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. Follow the Dogland at the Dogland. Check out thedogland.com. Go read Jack Duffin's incredible work he's been doing so far on the off-season roster deep dive series. We'll be back on Wednesday where we cover the interior offensive line, so look forward to that. If you guys missed Monday's episode, we break down the tackles, so definitely check that out. And until next time, Browns fans, go Browns.